The Weight of Clay, Chapter 1, The Gift. The package arrived on a rain-slicked Tuesday, a plain cardboard cube with no return address. Inside, nestled in a bed of crumpled brown paper, was a sculpture. It was about a foot tall, carved from a dark, mottled gray clay that felt unnaturally cold and dense. The figure was abstract, a vaguely humanoid form, twisted in a posture of profound agony or ecstasy. It was impossible to tell which. The face was a smooth oval, featureless save for two deep, empty holes where eyes should have been. Leo Adler, a historian plagued by writer's block and a general disillusionment with life, turned it over in his hands. There was a note, written in an elegant, spidery script he didn't recognize. For Professor Adler, a muse for a stagnant mind. It understands the weight of forgotten things. He chuckled, a dry, hollow sound in his quiet apartment. A gift from a grateful student, perhaps, or a bizarre promotional item from some academic press. He shrugged and placed it on the corner of his desk, facing the window. It was ugly, but it had a certain presence. He named it Lump and thought little more of it. That night, he dreamed. He was standing in a vast, dark plain under a starless sky. The only feature was a massive black kiln, its mouth glowing with a sickly orange light. And from within, he heard a soft, wet, squelching sound, like hands working clay. A voice, gritty and deep, as if formed from earth and fire, spoke a single word, more. He woke with a start, his heart hammering. The dream had been unnervingly vivid. Shaking it off, he made coffee and sat at his desk, determined to break through his block. His current project, a biography of a minor 18th century poet, was going nowhere. The words wouldn't come. His eyes fell upon Lump. In the morning light, it seemed even darker, the empty eye sockets seeming to hold a deeper shadow. As he stared, a strange thing happened. A sentence, clear and perfectly formed, popped into his head. A brilliant analysis of the poet's use of metaphor that had eluded him for weeks. He typed it frantically. Then another sentence came, and another. It was a torrent. For 3 hours he wrote without pause, the words flowing through him as if channeled from some external source. He felt a euphoria he hadn't experienced in years. When he finally stopped, exhausted but exhilarated, he looked at the sculpture with newfound reverence. The note was right. It was a muse. Chapter 2. The Flow. The following days were a creative renaissance. Leo wrote with a ferocious, almost manic energy. His biography was expanding into a masterpiece. He stopped seeing friends. He forgot to eat. The only thing that mattered was the writing and the presence of the clay figure on his desk. But the cost soon became apparent. The ideas only came when he was near Lump. If he left his apartment for groceries, his mind would go blank, and a crushing anxiety would set in. A desperate need to return to the desk. The sculpture was becoming the center of his universe, and the world outside his study began to dim. The colors in his apartment seemed less vibrant. The taste of food became like ash. The voices of his friends on the phone sounded distant and tinny. It was as if the sculpture was siphoning the very essence of his lived experience to fuel his work. The dreams continued. Every night, the black kiln, the squelching sound, the voice demanding more. And every morning he would awake more tired, his body feeling heavy, as if he were slowly turning to stone himself. One afternoon, reaching for a book, his hand brushed against Lump. He yelped and pulled it back. The clay was no longer cold. It was warm, pulsating with a faint, rhythmic beat, like a heart. Horrified, yet fascinated, he peered into the empty eye sockets. For a fleeting second, he saw not darkness, but a flicker of that same sickly orange light from his dreams. And a new, terrifying idea bloomed in his mind, fully formed. The poet's mistress was not his muse, but his jailer. She trapped his soul in a locket made of her own hair. It was a grotesque, historically unverified theory, but it was brilliant, and he knew, with a chilling certainty, that it was true. The sculpture wasn't just giving him ideas, it was giving him knowledge. Forbidden, hidden knowledge. He typed the theory out, his fingers trembling. The moment he finished the sentence, a sharp, stabbing pain shot through his right shoulder. He cried out, rolling up his sleeve. There on his skin was a patch of gray, rough, numb flesh. It felt exactly like dried clay. Chapter 3. The Sculptor. Panic finally overrode his addiction. He tried to throw lump away. He put it in the trash, but an hour later, it was back on his desk, the cardboard box neatly folded beside it. He tried to smash it with a hammer, but the blow landed with a dull, dead thud, and the hammer bounced back as if it had struck solid iron. The clay was unmarred. He was trapped. The flow of ideas had become a torrent he couldn't stop, even if he wanted to. The sculpture demanded to be fed with his work, and it paid him in pain and numbness. The patch on his shoulder grew, spreading down his arm. The skin lost all sensation. It was dead weight. In desperation, he began to research the clay itself. He spent days in the university archives, the grayness of his arm hidden under long sleeves. He found nothing. Finally, in a forgotten compendium of local folklore, he found a passing reference to a geomantic artisan, a being of earth and fire that was said to grant inspiration to chosen artists. The cost was always the same, a piece of their vitality, their physical form, slowly replaced by the weight of clay. The text called it petrifaction of the soul. The last line of the entry made his blood run cold. The artisan's gifts are a chain. The final masterpiece is always a self-portrait. That night, the dream was different. He wasn't just standing by the kiln. He was inside it. The heat was immense, the squelching sound deafening. The gritty voice was no longer a single word. It was a sentence, spoken directly into his mind. The vessel is nearly full. One final work, the story of your end. Write it. He woke up screaming, his left leg now heavy and numb. He stumbled out of bed and looked in the mirror. A large gray patch covered his thigh. He was turning to stone. The self-portrait was his own petrified body. Chapter 4. The final masterpiece. He couldn't fight it anymore. The compulsion was a physical force, dragging him to his desk. His biography was forgotten. A new document was open on his screen, titled simply, The End of Leo Adler. His fingers began to move, typing not words of his own choosing, but a dictation from the thing on his desk. He sat at the desk, his body a prison of cold clay. He typed. The numbness spread to his other leg. He collapsed into his chair, unable to stand. His heart beat slow and thick, a sluggish pump of mud and memory. A crushing weight settled on his chest. His breathing became labored. He looked upon his muse, his tormentor, and saw his own face forming in the featureless clay. He forced his head to turn. The sculpture was changing. The smooth oval of its face was beginning to shift. Contours forming that were unmistakably his own. The line of his nose, the set of his jaw. The empty eye sockets now held a faint mocking glint. He was writing his own obituary in real time, and with every word, he made it truer. With the last of his will, he tried to type a different ending. And then he stood up, and he smashed the sculpture, and he was free. The keys refused to move. A searing pain shot up his fingers. He looked down. His hands on the keyboard were now completely gray. The fingers fused together into solid, useless clubs. He was trapped in his chair, a living statue. The final sentence came to his mind, not as a thought, but as an immutable fact. He had no way to type it, but it didn't matter. The work was complete. And the last thing to harden was his eyes, so he could watch, forever, as his muse began its next piece. The numbness climbed his neck, over his chin, up his face. The world narrowed to a pinprick of light, and then nothing. There was no sound, no feeling, only a vast, heavy, eternal darkness. Chapter 5. The Empty Studio. Weeks later, the landlord entered the apartment, concerned about the smell and the unpaid rent. The place was spotless, silent, and cold. On the desk, the computer was off, covered in a fine layer of dust, and in the chair sat what looked like an incredibly lifelike, if somewhat abstract, sculpture of a man in a posture of despair. His head bowed, his hands frozen on an invisible keyboard. It was made of a dark, mottled gray clay. The detail was astonishing, from the wrinkles on the brow to the terrified set of the mouth. It was a true masterpiece. The landlord whistled. Weird guy. Must have skipped town and left his art behind. He picked up the sculpture. It was incredibly heavy, like solid stone. Ugly thing. He tossed it into a cardboard box with other leftover items, intending to take it to the dump. But it was a hassle. He left the box in the basement storage unit, forgotten. In the dark, silent basement, the sculpture sat, and on the smooth, cold clay of its base, a tiny, almost imperceptible crack appeared. From within the crack, a faint orange light pulsed once, like a drowsy heartbeat. A new sentence formed in the stillness, a thought waiting for a thinker, a gift waiting for a recipient. The historian's work was flawed, but his form was perfect. The vessel is ready, now, for a new mind. Somewhere a package is being prepared, a plain cardboard cube. There is no return address. Inside, nestled in crumpled brown paper, is a gift for a stagnant mind. It is waiting for you.